Welcome to Life Stories, where we share heartfelt journeys of love, loss, and the healing power of time. Today's story is one of a mother's unwavering search for her long-lost daughter. A tale of heartbreak, resilience, and the hope that never fades. After years of searching, a chance encounter in a simple diner brings them together. But the road to rebuilding their bond is only just beginning. Stay with us as we dive into this emotional journey. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to begin today's story with Life Stories. Caroline McAllister had spent years running away from her past, trying to escape a pain too profound to bear. At 63, she was a name that commanded respect and admiration. As the CEO of McAllister Enterprises, she had built an empire from nothing, an empire that spanned across continents and amassed billions. Her wealth could buy anything: the finest clothes, the most extravagant homes, the most luxurious vacations. But there was one thing her wealth could never procure: the return of her daughter, Emily. 20 years ago, on a bright summer afternoon, Emily disappeared. Caroline had taken her to the park. A routine outing. One that should have been filled with laughter. The kind of simple joy that only a mother and daughter could share. But that day, everything changed. Emily vanished without a trace. Despite endless searches, countless private investigators, and heartbroken nights of waiting by the phone for news that never came, there was nothing. No answers. No closure. Just a gnawing void that had only grown with the passing years. In the early days after Emily's disappearance, Caroline had been consumed by grief. She felt as though her heart had been torn from her chest. But over time, as life demanded she continue on, she learned to live with the pain, to hide it beneath the layers of success and public image. Her company flourished, but her soul remained forever marked by that empty space left by Emily's absence. Yet, despite the years that had passed, Caroline never stopped looking for her daughter. Every child she saw, every giggle or high-pitched laugh that echoed through the air, reminded her of the girl she had lost. There wasn't a day that went by without thinking of Emily, the child with the bright smile and the mischievous glint in her eyes. The little girl who used to sit beside her at the breakfast table, asking questions about the world, dreaming about the future. After years of running from the memories, Caroline finally returned to California, to the place where her daughter had disappeared. It felt as if fate had guided her back here. Something about the town felt right. Like a part of her heart still belonged there. Unfinished business she hadn't known was still waiting to be resolved. Caroline couldn't explain it, but she had the sense that the universe was pulling her toward this very moment, even if she didn't fully understand why. One afternoon, feeling a bit weary of the fancy restaurants and opulent settings that had become her usual haunts, Caroline craved something simpler, something more human. She found herself driving aimlessly through the quiet streets of her new town, her mind a swirl of emotions, when her eyes landed on a small diner. It was nothing spectacular, just a humble establishment with a sign in bright red that read Sunnyside Eats. But something about it caught her attention: its warmth, the way it seemed to call out to her. Caroline entered, and the little bell above the door chimed, announcing her arrival. The diner was filled with the hum of everyday life. Families gathered together, friends chatting over coffee, the kind of ordinary scene that had once felt so familiar, so comforting. She chose a corner booth, a spot that allowed her to observe the room but still offered some privacy. It was here, in this humble setting, that Caroline's life would change forever. A waitress soon approached her table. She was a young woman in her 20s, with soft brown eyes that seemed to hold a quiet depth behind them. Her uniform was slightly wrinkled, but there was a kindness in her smile, a subtle weariness that spoke of the struggles she must have faced. "Good afternoon." The waitress greeted her, holding a notepad and a pen. "What can I get started for you?" Caroline looked up, and in that instant, something inexplicable stirred within her. There was a familiarity in the waitress's eyes, something that tugged at Caroline's memory. A whisper of a feeling she couldn't quite place. For a moment, her heart skipped a beat, and she felt a strange sense of recognition. She quickly dismissed the thought, reminding herself that it had been years since she had last seen Emily. It was impossible, after all this time, that this young woman could be her daughter. "Just coffee for now. Thank you," Caroline replied, her voice steady but her heart racing just a little faster than usual. The waitress nodded and went off to prepare the coffee. Caroline leaned back in her booth, watching her move gracefully between tables, chatting kindly with customers, balancing trays with an ease that spoke of years of practice. But it wasn't just her physical poise that caught Caroline's attention, it was the warmth in her demeanor, the subtle strength in her movements. Caroline had seen that resilience before, in her own daughter, when Emily was just a little girl, always bouncing back from setbacks with a spirit that couldn't be broken. When the waitress returned with the coffee, Caroline's gaze was drawn to a small gold locket around the young woman's neck. The locket caught the light from the diner's fluorescent lamps, glinting in a way that made Caroline's breath catch in her throat. "That's a beautiful locket," Caroline said, her voice softening. The waitress instinctively touched the locket, a quiet smile playing on her lips. "Thank you," she said. "It's very special to me." Caroline's pulse quickened. "If you don't mind me asking, where did you get it?" she inquired, her curiosity suddenly overwhelming her. The waitress's smile faded slightly, and she looked down at the locket. "It was a birthday gift from my mom," she said quietly. "I was really young when she gave it to me. I don't remember much about her, because I grew up in foster care. But this is the one thing I've always had of hers." Foster care. The words echoed in Caroline's mind like a bell ringing through the silence. Her heart thudded painfully in her chest. Could it be possible? Could this young woman be? No, it was too much to hope for. But as the waitress moved away to tend to other customers, Caroline reached into her purse with trembling hands and pulled out an old photograph. The edges were worn, the colors faded, but the image was still clear: Caroline and Emily, smiling at the camera on Emily's 5th birthday. The little girl was wearing a tiny gold locket, identical to the one the waitress wore. Caroline's heart raced as she stared at the photo. It couldn't be a coincidence. It couldn't. As the waitress returned, Caroline felt as though the world was suddenly shifting beneath her feet. She couldn't keep the emotions bottled up any longer. "I know this might sound odd," Caroline began, her voice wavering slightly, "but could you sit with me for a moment?" The waitress looked hesitant but then nodded, sliding into the booth across from Caroline. "Is everything okay?" Caroline slid the photograph across the table. "Do you recognize this?" she asked softly. The waitress picked up the photo, her brow furrowing as her fingers brushed against the locket in the picture. Her eyes widened as she looked back and forth between the image and Caroline. This little girl looks just like me," she whispered. Caroline's voice broke as she whispered, "That's because it is you. You're my daughter. My Emily." The young woman's hand flew to her mouth. "No, that can't be. My name is Hannah. I don't have a family," she said, her voice shaking. Caroline's heart ached as she reached across the table. "Anna," she said gently. "Anna was your nickname. I used to call you that all the time when you were little." The words hung in the air, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. The world outside the diner carried on, oblivious to the profound truth unfolding in that small corner booth. And in that moment, Caroline McAllister knew that nothing would ever be the same again. Hannah stared at Caroline, her face a mixture of disbelief and confusion. Her eyes darted between the photograph and the woman sitting before her. This can't be right," she stammered, shaking her head. "I don't know you. I don't know anything about being Emily." Caroline's chest tightened, her breath catching in her throat. She had been prepared for a moment of shock, but seeing Hannah so utterly lost in her own confusion was harder to bear than she had anticipated. The truth she had long feared, longed for, even, was spilling out into the world. and she had no idea how to make it all fit together. She reached for Hannah's trembling hand, her own fingers cold and steady with the weight of a long-buried truth. "I know this is overwhelming," Caroline said gently, her voice soft but firm. "But listen to me. I am your mother, Caroline McAllister. I lost you when you were just 5 years old. I searched for you. I never stopped searching." Hannah pulled her hand away, recoiling from the words. "No," she said, her voice rising in protest. "I don't remember you. I don't know you. I don't have a mother." The words stung like a slap, but Caroline had braced herself for them. This was never going to be easy. They were two strangers sitting across from each other, both haunted by pieces of a past neither of them truly understood. "Hannah, please," Caroline pleaded, her voice shaking slightly. "You were taken from me. The day you disappeared, it shattered everything. I thought I had lost you forever. I never gave up hope. I knew in my heart that you were out there somewhere." Hannah's eyes softened for the briefest of moments, but the walls that had built up around her were thick and unyielding. "I don't know what to believe," she whispered, more to herself than to Caroline. She pressed her fingers to her temple as if trying to piece together memories that had long since faded. "I don't know who I am anymore." Caroline felt the weight of those words deep in her bones. The child she had raised, the little girl she had loved more than life itself, was a stranger to her now. This wasn't the reunion she had imagined. The reunion she had dreamed of for years was supposed to be full of joy, of tears and laughter, of healing. But instead, she was sitting here, watching the daughter she had lost slip further away. "I understand that you're scared," Caroline said quietly, trying to find the right words to reach her. "This is a lot to take in. But I swear to you, I never stopped looking. I never gave up on you. Emily." The mention of her name seemed to have a strange effect on Hannah. She flinched, a subtle tremor running through her, as though the name itself was some forgotten key that had the power to unlock doors deep within her. She looked down at the photograph once more, tracing the edge of it with her fingers as if trying to make sense of it all. "I don't understand," Hannah said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why would you give up on me? How could I have disappeared and you not have found me?" Caroline's heart broke all over again as she met Hannah's gaze. "I never gave up, sweetheart. There were so many roadblocks, so many false leads, so many dead ends. I tried everything, private investigators, the police, anyone I could think of. But no one ever found you." Hannah sat back in her seat, her hand still clutching the locket. "I don't remember anything about being Emily. My earliest memories are from foster homes, moving from one to the next. I don't have any memories of a mother. I don't even have a name." Caroline's voice faltered, but she pushed on, trying to reach her daughter. "That's because you were so young when it happened. You were taken. And they changed your name. They kept you from me. But you were always in my heart. Emily. Always." Hannah's eyes shimmered with unshed tears, but she blinked them away. "If I'm Emily, then where was I? Where have I been all these years?" The question hung in the air like a dark cloud, and Caroline knew the answer wouldn't be easy to bear. "I don't know, sweetheart," she admitted. "I don't have all the answers. But what I do know is that you are my daughter. And I've spent every day since you disappeared hoping and praying that one day we'd be together again." Hannah's lips trembled, and for a moment, Caroline thought she might finally break, might finally let the weight of the truth wash over her. But instead, she stood up abruptly, her chair scraping harshly against the floor. "I need to go," Hannah said, her voice cracking. "I don't know what to do with this." Caroline reached out instinctively, her hand desperate but gentle. "Please, don't go," she pleaded. "I know it's hard to believe right now, but I'm here. I want to help you understand. We can figure this out together." But Hannah pulled away, shaking her head. "I don't even know who I am. How could you know?" The pain in Hannah's voice was unbearable. And for the first time, Caroline felt as if she were losing her daughter all over again. "Please," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Just let me help you." Hannah didn't answer immediately. She stood there for a moment, her eyes searching Caroline's face, as though trying to find anything that could help her make sense of what was happening. But then, without another word, she turned and walked away, leaving Caroline alone in the diner, surrounded by the empty echoes of the life she had once hoped for. As the door closed behind her, Caroline sank back into the booth, her hands trembling. The world outside continued on, oblivious to the storm raging within her. She had found her daughter, but the road ahead was more uncertain than ever. What kind of future could they have when the past had been torn apart so thoroughly? And how could she ever help Hannah find her way back to the woman she had once been? As Caroline sat alone in the diner, the weight of everything that had happened settled heavily on her heart. The journey to reconnect with her daughter had just begun, and though the path was uncertain, she was willing to face whatever came next. After all these years of searching, she had finally found her. Now, it was up to them to rebuild the bond they had lost, one small step at a time. Hannah, though lost and confused, carried with her the seeds of who she once was. And maybe, just maybe, with time and patience, they could both heal. If you've enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more touching life stories. Hit the notification bell to stay updated on new videos that explore love, loss, and the profound lessons life has to offer. Thank you for watching.